Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Boxing Report. Episode 405. I'm your host, Michael. Joining me this week, usual cast of characters, Gail from nyfights.com, Daniel from 4 Boxing News and the Inscriber, and my compadre, my brethren, the OG of Three Kings Boxing. You've heard him on the show plenty of times before. Bo, aka Truth and Facts About Sports Talk. What's going on, ladies and gents?
It's a good night to be talking about the sweet science. There's a lot going on. So I want to hear from you in the comments and on the chat. And tell your friends. Get on down.
Including breaking news or an update, if you will, regarding a fight that's been talked about for years. We may finally see it happen.
We might want to
we'll
call
get
it.
into that.
We might want to call it breaking rumors, but you know.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. There you go.
Navigating through the rumors. Yeah, that's what you might want to call it.
Right. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report, live YouTube show, podcast, blog, site discussing all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science in any way, it will get discussed. If you wish to email us, you can do so. P4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com. If you want to find out all information regarding Pound for Pound Boxing Report, the site is the place to go to, p4pboxingreport.com. If you check the site out and navigate particularly the top portion of the site, you'll find links to where to check out Pound for Pound Boxing Report, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, whether it's Spotify, whether it's Anchor, whether it's Google Podcast, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, you should be able to find Pound for Pound Box Report. Also, links to where to check out Pound for Pound Box Report all over social media. Links to the YouTube channel, links to the Facebook, IG, Tumblr, and we finally got the Twitter page back. So, for those who are new, just created it today. For those who do not know, Pound for Pound Box Report, the original one was unfortunately hacked and got suspended. As a result, I had to recreate a new one. But the new Pound for Pound Boxing Report handle on Twitter is at P4PBOXINGRPT. Let me repeat that, at P4PBOXINGRPT. Do me a favor and please follow the new Twitter handle and like as well as share the Twitter handle as well for those who decided to follow the newly created page. If you're checking us out on YouTube, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Help the overall algorithms get us closer to being monetized, blah, blah, blah. If you wish to donate, doesn't matter if it's $1, $2, $5, whatever spare change you have in mind and you wish to contribute, you can do so. Cash Me and PayPal donation links on the site. If you're looking to get your body right for the summer, summer is next month, about a month away. Please check out BODI, formerly known as Beachbody On Demand. Programs for any and all suitable interest. If you want to go old school, the P90X series 1, 2, and 3. 2 and 3 are more updated, but P90X, the original one, still works. So does the Insanity and the Insanity Asylum series. If you're looking for a morning workout program, I suggest you check out Morning Meltdown. If you're looking just to get your weightlifting on, check out Lift 4 and the new formation of Lift 4, Lift More. If you're looking for something that really challenges you, I strongly suggest you check out 6 weeks of the work. If you're looking for a boxing specific program, check out 10 Rounds. That's a 6-week program, 3 days a week of boxing based cardio, 2 days a week of weightlifting. At the very least, check out BODI and take advantage of the 14-day free trial. And that is for 14 days, you get free access to any and all programs on BODI, aka Beachbody On Demand. Let's get things going. And how can I do it? How do I want to do this? Let's save the big fight for last, right? And let's go to Ireland and the homecoming of Katie Taylor. Begin things off with you, Gail. We begin the show with ladies first as always. Katie Taylor, we all know her exploits. Unified lightweight champion, considered by many number one women's pound for pound fighter in the world, right? Well, she moved up to 140 pounds to fight undisputed junior welterweight champion Chantelle Cameron. Katie Taylor was the favorite coming in, but as we discussed last week, Cameron is the quote unquote underdog, but she was a very, very live underdog. And what do you say? Cameron took the fight to Taylor early, was able to land pretty consistently. Taylor came on in the last couple of rounds towards the second half of the fight, but she just couldn't make up the point differential from the early rounds, and Cameron ended up getting it. Close decision, 2 points, I believe, in and around there across the board. Kudos to Cameron. Beat former, what many people believe is the best women's fighter in the game. Her cachet, her star power has moved up in the aftermath. Your thoughts on the performance, first off, Gail, but secondly, your thoughts on Cameron and your thoughts on Taylor, because in the aftermath, there were rumblings and words throughout boxing social media that this fight was a sign that Katie Taylor, she may not be the fighter that she once was.
Let's first of all congratulate these women for getting this fight on, for making the matchup. You know, remember, this fight only took place in the aftermath of the Taylor Serrano rematch falling apart due to Serrano's injuries from her fight against Erica Cruz. That fight fell through. Taylor was determined to stage this Dublin homecoming. Now, she could have faced anybody and sold that arena out and still had the party atmosphere, the devoted fans, the making of history, bringing that fight to Dublin, selling it out as a female main event. Truly, there were a number of perfectly good opponents she could have chosen for a title defense in her division. No, what does she do? She looks at the undisputed unified champion in the division above her and says, let's do it. And they did. And they, by the way, put that fight together in a matter of days. It didn't even take a week, days after the idea came up. So we got a tremendous fight, a fun card to watch. History made. The Ireland fans got to see, truly, she is perhaps the biggest sports hero in Ireland. And, they got to see that fight in person, got to see her on native soil for the first time as a professional. It did turn out that Taylor bit off a little more than she could chew. There are weight divisions for a reason. Women have to blow through those divisions frequently because when they get to the elite level like this, the talent pool is slimmer than it is for the men. It just is. So it isn't uncommon for the women to move up and down in divisions far more frequently than the men. But it does mean they take a lot of risks. They are going to lose, just as often as not. And in this case, Taylor was looking at, across the ring from her, a fighter just as skilled as she is, perhaps with a little more punching power, who was simply just a whole lot bigger. And let us also remember, a lot younger. So even with all of that, plus the pressure that had to be a factor appearing at home in this big fight, it was still a very close fight. The scores were 96-94 twice for Cameron and a 95-95 card to make it a majority decision. So no shame in that, no matter which way it would have gone. Cameron absolutely, without question, was the winner of the fight. Even as narrow as those scorecards were, there was absolutely no disputing that she remained undisputed at super lightweight to retain all those titles. Even Taylor, at the conclusion of the fight, as they were awaiting the scores, if you looked at her, her body language told you that she knew she hadn't won the fight. It was probably a lot closer than she realized. It was tremendous. They should be celebrated for it. I think the talk about Taylor's skills slipping really doesn't show the respect these women are due for getting this fight together and putting on just a superb show.
I'll go to you, Bo. To Gail's point, the credit first and foremost must go to Cameron, right? Not just the size was a factor, but also you have to put into account technical aspect. From that vantage point, right? What was Cameron able to do that made her so successful against Taylor, particularly the first 2/3 of the fight? And we've seen Taylor in battles against when she's fought her best competition, whether it's the fight with Serrano, whether it's the 2 fights with Delphine Pursoon, right? She's always been able to adjust and cope and find a way to pull it out in the end. She wasn't able to do it in this case.
Well, first of all, you have to take in consideration this is a fight Chantelle Cameron had been won back when she was 17 years old. She's had a very long time to study Katie Taylor and watch her. And the number one thing she did, which is the most important thing she did to me, was her focus. Cameron in some fights sometimes will lose focus, and sometimes she let you back in the fight. Like she would abandon the boxing skills sometime and try to stand there and fight. Actually, she did that a few times in this fight, but she maintained her focus. And I think she surprised Katie Taylor with the fact that she was being more of the boxer than Katie Taylor. Chantelle Cameron was using her jab. She's working behind the jab, building off the jab. She was using her feet. She stand up on her toes, bouncing out, moving around when she had to. But the biggest key to me was she immediately came out and she started attacking Katie Taylor, and she attacked her to the body. And every time Taylor would run off those quick combinations to get the crowd in, she immediately responded. She didn't wait. She immediately responded to get the crowd back down. She did an excellent job of not allowing the crowd influence, the moment of what was happening in that fight. She did a very good job of that because every time Taylor would do something, she made sure to respond right back. So, that was some of the things she did. It was still a close fight because, and this, hopefully I'm on when we get to the main card. But what people have to understand is these are the kind of fights you're going to get when you're talking about top level fighters. When you're talking about top level fighters, you're going to get fights like this where they're going to be close. There's going to be some swing rounds. There's going to be some, I don't know. So you're going to get that. And that's the type of fight this was. But I got to agree with Gail in this aspect of you have to give Katie Taylor mad props because she knows how dangerous Chantelle Cameron is because she's fought her before. She's been following. Cameron became an undisputed champion. Like, for people who want to say, oh, Katie didn't know how good. No. She knew how good that girl was. Right? Don't take that away. She knew how good Chantelle Cameron was. There's no way she didn't know that. But Katie Taylor wanted to make her homecoming be memorable with a top opponent. And you got to give her props to that because Gail is right. She could have grabbed a girl who was making a debut and fought that girl making a debut and sold that place out. So it was great to see. The sportsmanship was great afterwards. She said she wants the rematch. So we'll see what happens. My biggest question is, and if you go to 3kingsboxing.com, I wrote an article on this. This fight may have effectively killed any rematch from Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor. We may not see that. We may not see that rematch now.
And you can check out Bo's article over on 3kingsboxing.com, your source of pure unadulterated boxing information. Shout out to the entire Three Kings Boxing cast and crew. 2K, who's the head of Three Kings Boxing. You got Bo sitting here, senior writer, head of media relations. You got myself, fellow senior writer. Shout out to Picard, who's a senior writer as well. Red, who does a lot of work behind the scenes on the site, as well as all our contributors behind the scenes as well. To Bo's point, Daniel, Eddie Hearn is out here suggesting that a rematch with Serrano is off the table for the time being, and it looks like we're going to see a rematch instead with Cameron and Taylor. Now, the interesting thing is this fight was fought at 140 pounds, but in the aftermath of Cameron's win, she's now suggesting that she's willing to go down to 135 pounds because she has an interest in winning the lightweight belt as well. So what you could happen, Daniel, is in back-to-back fights, you have Cameron, who in a previous fight beat Jessica McCaskill, who came down to 140. McCaskill at the time was undisputed welterweight champion, right? Or was the undisputed welterweight champion. She turns around and beats Katie Taylor here, undisputed junior welterweight champ, undisputed lightweight champion, and now she wants to run it back a second time to win the undisputed, to try to claim the undisputed belts at 135 as well, being simultaneous undisputed champion in two divisions. If this rematch does happen and she pulls off that feat, unprecedented, regardless of men or women's boxing.
Yep, and this is both gets credit to the risks that the women take, and unfortunately, the lack of depth that makes them take this risk. Because Gail's right, Bo's right. You probably literally could have put Katie Taylor against like one of the Muppets from Sesame Street, and that place would have sold out. Dublin would have sold out for Katie Taylor. But because the division may not be as deep, it also provides different challenges. And that's what Katie Taylor took. One interesting thing when it came to the fight, and I'm glad Bo noticed it is Chantelle Cameron's body work, because it wasn't so much that she hammered to the body. She did it in a very slick way. Every single time she landed combination, she landed to the body. And you notice in the first half of the fight, Katie Taylor didn't know how to counter. She didn't start really countering and landing her own shots until the second half of the fight. But by then, those body shots already took effect. And the combinations, even though they were good, they probably didn't have as much power as they would have if Chantelle didn't target the body. This is a good, like I said, this is probably a good, messy situation on it. Because, granted, Amanda Serrano could have waited. Could have waited for her injury to heal up. And just waited until this fight was over with, try to see to get Katie then. If, let's say, Katie would have won. But no, she chose not to wait. She chose to have her own fight. We're going to be against Heather Hardy coming up. And now you have a situation where you have Serrano coming in, beating Hardy, which I fully expect her to. Maybe Katie Taylor beating Chantelle Cameron at 135, because she'll probably know by then a little bit more how to counter her a little bit better. And we have to see, because when it comes to this range of weight classes, we have to see how much even those extra 5 pounds can affect the fighter, because you could tell Chantelle Cameron, she looked like that bigger fighter in that ring against Katie. And then so you can have that, you can have Katie win, and you have a situation where you either have a trilogy with Cameron or you have the rematch with Amanda. I do feel bad a little bit that Amanda's getting sidelined, but the situation presented itself, and it may wind up benefiting them better down the line, maybe in 2024, when more than likely, if we're going to get the rematch with Taylor Serrano, that's more likely when it's going to happen now. Because there's a realistic chance we might get a trilogy between Taylor and Cameron.
Well, we shouldn't feel too sorry for Serrano.
Thanks for saying that, because I was going to.
Serrano is part of the reason why there's so much eagerness to get this rematch in the books is, number one, it was a huge success and they want to go right back while interest is high. But number two, Serrano is not available for at least another 3, 4, 5 months. She booked herself an August 5th date with Heather Hardy in Dallas. So she isn't even available. And who knows what's going to happen in that fight. You know, Serrano is a brawler. She likes to mix it up. And that's great. Her fights are super exciting. But she tends to get beat up. So even assuming she comes out of that fight with Hardy without any major injuries, you know, Hardy's going to come right at her too. She likes to rough it up. I would guess the absolute earliest she would want to take on this rematch is maybe right at the end of the year. Taylor can easily get another fight in with Cameron in the next few months. And it's even slightly possible they could do a trilogy fight and the calendar wouldn't have even turned to 2024. Talk about a throwback. That is old school stuff in the best possible way. So looking forward to it.
Or Serrano could have decided to run it back ASAP. I understand that she had this goal of wanting to become undisputed at 126, but the fight that people were calling for was a rematch between her and Taylor at 35, because that featherweight unification, that was going to be there regardless, and she was going to win it whoever she fought to become undisputed. That's my angle when it comes to part of you can't be that sorry for, because there was a window where they could have taken that fight, right? Run it straight back, and they didn't. And unfortunately, you look at the situation where she is now, fighting a rematch against Hardy that no one asked for. While we see Taylor and Cameron, even though Taylor lost, there's no luster off of her shine. We still view her as a great fighter, and if anything, Serrano has catapulted as a result of this win, and she's up in the pantheon of elite fighters, and they're going to run it back for probably even more money. So from those two ladies, in their perspective, it's all good, and everybody wants to see a rematch between Cameron and Taylor. And unfortunately for Serrano, she's going to be left out the loop, at least for the immediate future. Going to move on here. I'm going to split some of these fights up because it was a lot of fights on the card of featuring Haney and Lomachenko. So we're going to split these fights up. Going to you, Daniel, in terms of this card that took place at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. Let's start with Raymond Muratalla and Jeremiah Nakathila, right? Muratalla was thought to be this great prospect, but in his last bout, right, he didn't look that good. Got put down, struggled in spots. Fighting a Nakathila, who was coming off of a big win against a big stoppage win over Burchelt, right? There were questions about Muratalla as a result, but you got to give credit to him. Those lingering questions that in the aftermath of his last fight, he answered the critics coming in as not only did he win against Nakathila, he won by early stoppage and looked very good in the process.
Yeah, there was no hesitancy in this fight, and it was a good thing to do because coming off a struggling fight in that manner, and when you already have a lot of questions coming in, you have to make sure that you finish it out strong. You have to make sure that whatever you start, you finish it. And he did it in emphatic fashion. That card in itself, other than a couple of fights, had really, really good stoppages. This was one of them. I missed some of the first round, But I saw enough of the highlights, luckily, afterwards when I got home to know that the job got done. And I honestly wouldn't mind seeing this being run back because it was such a short fight, but you can tell if both these guys turn it on, this could be a barn runner.
And it's Muratalla. Thanks for correcting me in the private chat. Follow-up question, right? This was at lightweight area. How would you compare Muratalla to another prominent 135-pounder in the top-ranked stable, Keyshawn Davis?
Ooh. Keyshawn's developing a little bit better as far as his skill set, as far as being more of a slick fighter in that sense, but also developing power at the same time. I would say they're probably close to being even at the moment if we're judging it at lightweight at the moment, because Keyshawn's just barely starting out. So right now they're probably close to even given Keyshawn's progression. Give it about I wouldn't even say give it about half a year. Keyshawn Davis will probably pull out ahead.
And Muratalla, yeah, and I want to get Daniel on here because keep his attention because I know he's probably distracted in background as his Miami Heat are playing in Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals against the Celtics. They're down right now. I think as of this live recording right now, it's 81-75. Daniel, so I'm trying to get him as much as attention as he can because I know he has another eye on Celtics Heat, excuse me. Game 4. Also on this card, Daniel. I mean, Bo, a fighter we've talked about a bit here, but over on Three Kings Boxing, we pay a lot of attention towards the little giants, right? The smaller weight guys. And one fighter that we talked about to a great degree is Junto Nakatani, former champion, WBO champion at 112 pounds, right? Fall of last year, he made the decision to vacate that WBO belt, move up to 115 pounds. He was ordered to fight Kazuta Ioka. Ioka decided to vacate the WBO belt. He's going to fight a rematch against Joshua Franco, I want to say next month. Anyway, Nakatani fought Andrew Moloney for that vacant WBO belt at 115 pounds. And pretty much one way for Nakatani, put Moloney down, I want to say in round 2. Was in control throughout the bout, but it was the way that the fight ended, how Nakatani closed the deal. He ended the show in spectacular fashion, sensational left hand on the button, with less than 20 seconds to go, put Moloney down and out, right? Looked like he damn near killed him at the end of that fight because in the end it was just a sustained beating and just that one shot boom. Break down the fight if you want, but more to the point, with Nakatani, now a 2-division champion, I said it on Twitter after the fight, 115 pounds is a stacked division, particularly at the top, with Estrada, with Roman, with Franco, Gonzalez, I believe, who's the I forgot the IBF champion. His name escapes me. My apologies. But be that as it may, 15 is very, very good. And Nakatani is right in that mix. Kosai Tanaka, who also scored a win over the weekend. I will put Nakatani right in there, and he's going to be difficult to beat for anybody at 115, and dare I say, even 118 moving forward.
118 is going to be a little bit of a stretch. I could see if that's going to be a stretch. Look, when you look at what he did against Jason Moloney, because the biggest thing with any fighter is, does that power carry up when they go up? In the lower weight division, they have a higher chance that power follows because they're only talking 3 pounds versus the higher weight division where you could be talking from, anywhere between, a 7 to 10 pounds difference. That division right now just got fun because I still want to see him against Kazuda Oka. Whoever wins between Joshua Franco and Kazuda Oka, I want to see him fight that winner. I would love to see him fight Roman Gonzalez, or maybe even get a fight with Juan Francisco Estrada. So a lot of juicy fights there. He has the potential to run the tables. I'll give you that. He definitely has the potential to run the tables and become an undisputed champion down there at the super flyweight division, which again would be a crazy precedent setting to watch. Um, in a in a time where like Jose Tanaka was coming, then he took that L. We just saw Hiroto Kawaguchi. We thought he was, and then he wound up taking that L. To see what Junto Nakatani is doing, yeah, you're right. It's incredible. Now, when you start looking at 118 pounds, that's when that's when I'm like, oh, hold on, slow down a little, just a little bit there. Let's see what you're gonna do here at 115. Although 118, again, got some good top quality fights that he could be a part of. But as of right now, I'm mouth watering over the possibility of the guys that he could fight. Like I said, Juan Francisco Estrada, Roman Gonzalez, Run Vasyl. It's oh man, just I hope he's able to make those fights. The thing is, like he did with this fight, he may have to travel, and if he's willing to do that, and under the top rank banner, wow, would love it.
And the good thing about that, the positive thing, into your last point, for those who do not know, Nakatani has been training in and out here in the United States since he was a teenager, I think 15, 16 years old. You check at the archives of Three Kings Boxing, we detail how Junto Nakatani wants to follow in the footsteps of his countryman Naoya Inoue, has a great desire to become a household name in the United States. Trains a lot in LA. Has been to some fights in the United States. He was in attendance for then junior bantamweight champion Bam Rodriguez. I believe his stoppage win over Rungsavai back summer last year. Right? He's talked about he's wanting to fight. He's talked about in the past how he wants to fight Bam and he wants to fight others at 115. So you say he has to travel. He's willing to do that. And he has expressed a willingness, a desire to come to the United States specifically, and that spells good news, and that spells even more star-studded power in the 115-pound division. I go to you, Gail. I hate to put this on you, but also on this card, you had the rematch between Oscar Valdez and Adam Lopez. Valdez won, but outside of that, I got nothing because in watching the replay of that fight, yawn.
There were moments, and it was worthwhile to see where Valdez stands. This is a rematch. He had fought Lopez before. Both of them had hit the deck in that fight before Valdez took care of him, I think, in round 7. Lopez gives a good effort. He isn't going to lay down. He's got enough firepower to, make you have to watch it. So this is exactly the right kind of fight for Valdez, as kind of a test case for Top Rank to look at him in action. And the layoff did him good. He's been off 13 months, mainly due to injuries. In that year or two prior to taking time off, he had a lot of rough fights. It did him good. He looked real good. He looked sharp. Not a lot of wild fireworks, or certainly nothing like the knockout punches delivered by either Muratalla or Nakatani, which were both spectacular. And if Nakatani's knockout isn't knockout of the year, I want to see what the winner is, because it'll take a lot to top that. there were some scary moments there. Just getting back to that, looking at Moloney laying on the deck, there really were. That was a queasy moment. But this tees Valdez up for a fight against Emmanuel Navarrete. It's already on the schedule. Looks good. Like at the in Glendale, Arizona. It'll sell out there. That's a perfect venue for it. And that's all this was meant to do. So understanding that, if you found it a little sleepy, well, Michael, you need to have some time to be able to go, refresh your drinks, snack set up, take a little break. For some of us, we need to feed animals or let them out or something. So, you have to, give Valdez and Lopez a thank you, at least for that.
Yeah, not every fight can be good, I guess, and one of them. Let's move on to the big fight of the weekend, right? Highly anticipated bout between undisputed lightweight champion Devin Haney and 3-division champion Vasyl Lomachenko. And man, there's been a lot of talk about this fight in the aftermath, including some controversial comments that we may touch on. But let's focus on the fight itself, and this is going to be an open floor from anybody who wants to talk about it. Closely contested bout, fought at a high level of skill, in my opinion. Haney got off to a good start early. I thought he was really effective landing counter punches and doing body work, because the thing about Lomo, the more you've seen him, the more you've noticed that A, his inside game is not that great. B, he doesn't like body shots, and Haney was able to get the better of it on the inside and land with some body shots that Lomachenko didn't like, particularly in the first half of the bout. But over time, you could see Loma starting to figure Haney out, was able to get home with some shots, was able to get home with some rounds 10 and particularly round 11. He dominated the 11th round. I felt he hurt Haney, but in the last round, Haney came on, ultimately got the decision, 15-13 on 2 scorecards, 16-12 on the third. Going to split this up. First of all, to each of you, your thoughts on the fight. How did you score it? To me, it could have went either way. So we're going to talk about that first, and then we can dive into the aftermath and people yelling robbery and some other comments that's been made by some particular folks, and we can dive into that. But first, the fight itself. Let's start off with you, Bo. I'll meet your mic, Bo. I don't think Bo is with us, so let's go to you, Gail.
I had it 115, 113 for Lomachenko.
I'm here. I didn't realize I was on mute, but go ahead, Gil. I'll go after you.
All right. But I'll tell you, when I'm scoring fights, and I did not have to write a recap since I'd covered the Matchroom card earlier in the day, I could really focus. So, I had it round by round listing, and against a lot of those rounds where I would note who won the round, I would say close, which tells me, in retrospect, you look at it again, when you score rounds that are very, very close, the next time you watch it, you see something you didn't see the first time. Scoring in real time is very, very difficult. So a draw would have been very reasonable. A 115, 113, either way, very reasonable. There are people who are not going to be happy if they see a 116 score, but that is still, although at the very outside range on either side, I would love to just sit down and discuss that with somebody over a beverage. These are not robberies. These are close fights among 2 skilled guys. That's exactly what you want to see. I get it that somebody is happy and somebody is disappointed, but everybody needs to kind of calm down. That's why you fight the fights. Somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose unless it's a draw. And you can only imagine the screaming and yelling we would have heard if it had been a draw.
Going back to you, Bo, what were you going to say about the fight?
The first thing I'm gonna say is my old behind gonna go ahead on and take that brick off my piggy bank and spend some money and get me a new phone. That's the first thing I'm gonna say. But the thing is that the reason why you are hearing more and more screams of a draw, and this is my personal opinion, is human error. We have more things taking place in boxing. Back in the day when you had Dr. Freddie Pachenko, Emmanuel Stewart, Teddy Atlas, Bobby Chaz, they was telling you what was going on in the fight, and they would let you know it's a close fight. They would even say to you, "This is a close fight. Don't be surprised." So they're telling you this the whole fight. So that way, when the results come out, you're not screaming robbery because you've been hearing this all fight. Compubot counts. Again, you got some person clicking something right there, and like, how do we know this is accurate? So then the commentator team, Andre Ward said something that got me. He said, "Oh, these are the championship rounds. These are the rounds that really count." What are you talking about? Every round counts. So what? You telling me don't start judging until you get to round nine? You know, so it's a lot that goes into it, and instead of teaching or showing people what they're watching. Max Kellerman loves to say, "Oh, he was winning the story of the fight," and I'm sitting there like, "No, that's BS. Two guys are telling the story here because they're both fighting. One guy's telling one story, the other guy's telling the other story. You need to explain the stories that's being told here." So when you already have a big fight, when you have the fight not being properly and thoroughly explained, when you have a situation where the favorite fighter who is Loman, with people in attendance is Lomachenko, right? So you're influenced by all of these things. You have to make sure in a situation like this right here, every aspect of the fight is being explained. It's a close fight. Close fights have never been, nor will they ever be, a robbery. Again, you want to talk to me about a robbery? Let's go Pernell Whitaker and Julio Cesar Chavez. Let's go Oscar De La Hoya and Felix Strum. Those are robberies. Heck, I'll even do you one better. You want to complain to me about a scorecard? How about 119 to 109 against Vasyl Lomachenko and Teofimo Lopez? Maybe even 115, 113, even though Bivol won, but a 115, 113 scorecard? Like, there's way more than we can talk about. But when there is a close fight, like Gail said, I had it 115, 113 for Haney, but I had like three swing rounds, right? And I get everybody talking about the scorecard, 116, 112, but they're screaming that as if that would have swung the pendulum toward Lomachenko. No, it would have been 115, 113, even if he would have gave that 10th round, which I agree that 10th round was a Lomachenko round, but he gave it to Haney. But even if he gives that 10th round to Lomachenko, was still a 115, 113 scorecard. So, I mean, at the end of the day, and I'm not saying I always feel like when you have these type of fights, boxing is, and you start hearing people screaming robbery. That's because boxing is failing to properly tell you what's going on and what's happening in that fight. They're not letting you know this is a close fight. It can go either way. They're not doing it consistently. They'll probably do it toward the end, but you have to do that consistently. So everybody's like, okay, yeah, we're being told how close this fight is and everything of that ilk and nature. Also, sometimes some things carry over. A lot of people are still kind of not have a bad taste in their mouth about that early stoppage when Rolly Romero was getting his ass whooped by that 40-year-old. So, but I mean, it was a great. I hate stuff like this because it takes away from how great that fight was. That was a great fight at a very high level, and typically when you see top fighters fighting each other at a high level, you don't even get that kind of action. Well, we was getting that kind of action in a chess match. Some chess matches are boring, and we've seen them. But we was getting an excellent chess match with a lot of action. So it just takes away from the sport. I heard people crying saying that Devin Haney should rematch Lomachenko. I wouldn't do that. No, Yeah, I'm not doing that right away, unless you telling me he re-signed with somebody. But I wouldn't do that right away. But like I say, at the end of the day, I hate all of this is happening because it's taken away from what was a great fight. Instead of us talking about how great the fight was, we're talking about how one guy got robbed. Which I still want people to explain to me if it's a close fight. Now, if you somebody that's saying, "Oh, Lomachenko won," easily 117, well, okay, I got no conversation for you. I really got no conversation for you. But if you somebody that's honest about it was a close fight, like Gail said, it was 115, 113. I think she had for Lomachenko. I'm not mad at that because I had 3 swing rounds. If I switch some of them swing rounds towards his way, guess what? I got the same scorecard she got, and that's really what boxing is all about. So but like I said, I just hate it took away from a great fight.
Last week I talked about in the comment section, the word was great was used in reference to a particular fighter. I forgot who at this point. Um, I don't like that word because it's overused and it's it's a it's a loosely applied term that should have specific meaning, and often it doesn't. Is not said in a specific way, right? Because when you call someone "quote unquote" great, that should have a lot of weight and gravitas when it comes to fighters. Same thing with the word robbery, right? Just because you disagree with a certain scorecard, to throw around that word just all random, for lack of a better word, it's not fair. It's not right. You could be upset and feel that Lomachenko won, but to say that he was "quote unquote" robbed, like De La Hoya did earlier today, but then had the nerve to compare um, that fight to his loss to Mayweather back in 2007. Excuse me. No, check your language, Oscar. With all due respect, apples and orange comparison, sir. Uh, don't be guilty of hyperbole, right? Uh, you just being a reactionary in that case. And I think what we saw from De La Hoya is indicative in what we saw in too many instances, Daniel, in terms of folks who felt that Lomachenko won. Believe if you won, believe you if you think he won, fair enough. But just to be all just so outraged when there are more egregious decisions, right? Bo mentioned it with Whitaker and De La Hoya. I can go back to Whitaker and Jose Luis Ramirez, right? There are many more fights that are much more controversial, quote unquote, than this one.
Yeah. First, I'm going to talk about when it comes to the fight first before we get into what I'm going to call the Dave Moretti issue. This the first half of the fight, Haney was landing to the body. For the first third of it, he was very successful at it. Then by the fourth round, Loma started adjusting and started moving enough where, if anything, he started getting grazed a little bit. And as the fight went on, he started landing better combinations than Haney. And this is probably one of the reasons why you're hearing the cry of probably robbery at the moment is Haney went a little bit to the Klitschko playbook, whereas if guy likes combinations, hold, constantly holding. That admit that's not aesthetically pleasing in many ways, but he didn't hold the entire fight. He landed good combinations. He landed good straight rights. He established the jab in a good or at least 4 or 5 rounds of the fight. Established the jab well, so it wasn't a situation where he was committing the Klitschko throughout the entire fight. But it is his natural reaction when combinations are being landed on him, which Loma was. And the fight was getting better as the round went on because as Loma started figuring Haney out, Haney started adjusting a little bit more besides holding. And it became a pretty entertaining fight at the end. Unfortunately, that's the situation when it comes to the scorecards. because I don't think it's enough because of the fact that it was a 116, 112 scorecard. It was the specific round that they've already scored that made it 116, 112 that people got mad about, which is the 10th round. Probably the clearest round of the entire fight for Lomachenko. That Moretti scored that round to Haney. That's where most of the outcry is happening, because Mr. Magoo could see that Lomachenko actually won that round and won it pretty handily, but he scored it in that sense. The other factor, unfortunately, is the fact that Lomachenko did lay off the gas a little bit in the last round. That's what cost him the fight from being a loss to a draw, because if he would have just kept that pace and would have won the 12th, even with Moretti's scorecard, it would have been a majority draw. Because it would have been then Moretti's scorecard would have been 115, 113, and then the other two cards 114, 114. That's how good this fight was. But the problem, unfortunately, is it gets ruined by one scorecard. Now, the other part probably why we're seeing the call robbery or is the fact that Loma at the weigh-in many ways kind of became a sentimental favorite. Because at the weigh-in when they did the stare down, Haney was talking a mess. Loma wasn't saying anything. Haney decided to push Loma. And that probably got Loma, besides the fact, remember, he is Ukrainian. He is dealing still with the war happening in his native country. He said that immediately that's the first thing he's thinking about afterwards. That made him more of a sentimental favorite. And that does taint a lot of people's attention to it. This is somebody that picked Loma to win. But I picked Loma to win because I figured that he would have not let Haney establish the jab as much as he let Haney establish the jab. This was a good fight, and this was a close fight. You could have swing rounds in this fight. And it 115, 113 either way, that's fine. But unfortunately, like I said, it's a great fight that gets ruined by one scorecard. Should we remember, people, like what happened? I think was it the first Canelo Triple G card? I think we had a fight close, and then we had the 115 or the 118, 110 card. I forgot. Was it that fight that we ran CJ Ross out of the boxing, out of the sport because of that one scorecard? There's things that happen, unfortunately. Bo's right. There's a lot of human error involved, and that's what taints, unfortunately, which turned out to be a really, really good fight.
Yeah, that's when CJ Ross got run out. And that's when I established my annual CJ Ross Award for the worst scorecard boxing, which we have still perpetuated. Ross at least is gone. A lot of the problematic players, like last weekend, who was scoring UFC fights? Adelaide Bird and Tony Weeks. Oops.
Yikes. After this fight, immediately, you saw Shakur Stevenson in the ring. He's WBC mandatory. Give one of the coldest stares that you will ever see. Right? Is it automatic that Stevenson will fight Haney next, or do you think Haney will decide to move up to 140 pounds?
Well, that's gonna depend on what Haney wants to do as far as signing. If he decides to sign with Top Rank, I still don't think they do that next. I think they try to build that a little bit, so I don't think they do that next. But I think Haney is, Haney may decide to move up because he's caused the one underlying thing he's been saying is, I've been at this weight since I was 16. I've been here since I was 16. I've been here since I was 16. It's getting harder and harder to make it. I've been here since I was 16. And sometimes when a fighter is saying that, that's an indication that they're thinking about moving up. But it has to be something there for him to move up. So I think now that he's a free agent, he's going to weigh his options, depend on what route he wants to go. If he wants to go up, I don't see him re-signing with Top Rank. He may have to go back to Matchroom. He may have to do that, go back to Matchroom, because as it stands right now, they got the two champions over there in Regis Program and Super Matias. So it'd be interesting to see what he does next. But I just don't see after a fight like this. If I'm advising Devin Haney, I'm like, after a fight like this, you're not going to go right into a Shakur Stevenson fight. So, like I said, it just depends on what direction he wants to go.
Agree with you 100%, Bo. Haney, Lomachenko was a blown up featherweight. Haney is a welterweight stuffed into a 135-pound body. It's amazing to me he's done it for so long. And let's remember his last fight against Kambosos. Everybody was, oh my God, he looks horrible. He's drained. He can't make the weight. Oh, he shouldn't be doing this. And all of a sudden it's, let's do a rematch. Same weight again. No, he is done. He is done at this weight. There's so much going on for him if he moves up. It's time. It is time. And it won't be a Stevenson fight next. They're going to want to build that up. But I'll tell you what, I have not always been on the Shakur Stevenson train. He really had to win me over and make me a believer. And it took a while, but you know what? He earned it, and he has. And I'm liking sort of the, little more mature Stevenson. Yeah, he was up there in the ring, taking control, enjoying himself. Spotlight is suddenly spilling over on him. And Haney, didn't like Shakur, sharing his victory platform there. And you could tell the stink eyes going and some of the little snide comments. And Haney comments like, I'm undisputed. And Stevenson didn't even hesitate. And the comeback was, for now. I love that attitude. That's exactly how these guys should, tweet and chirp at each other until they finally get in the ring. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of good options. I do think that Haney will go back to Matchroom. He has a very good relationship with Eddie Hearn. So does his father, Bill. They see how Eddie stages fights. Look at what he did for Canelo in Mexico. Look at what he did for Katie Taylor in Dublin. He sees the kind of buildups, ring walks, all the trappings, and Eddie pays better, honestly. So I think that's exactly where he'll go back. There's plenty of opportunity there, matchups. Who wouldn't love to see a Haney Prograis fight? Sign me up for that. And who's to say that some of the talent who isn't there now doesn't follow him right over there? So I think that's where he'll go.
Let's quickly touch on some of the, not controversy regarding in terms of the action in the ring, but some of the controversial statements made in the aftermath of this fight. I mentioned what De La Hoya had to say in his tweet. We talked about in the previous episode racially charged comments by former unified lightweight champion Teofimo Lopez. He made a post on IG basically saying, for those who don't remember, Teofimo said that Top Rank and Bob Arab, they can keep their black fighters, and that he was leaving Top Rank, blah, blah, blah. In the aftermath of this, he tried to use this result as a way to co-sign his comments that got him in trouble. Also, you had Paulie Malignaggi running his mouth saying that the people who are upset about this result or wanted, basically saying that people are upset because they wanted the white guy. People who felt that Haney won was because they wanted the white guy, quote unquote, Lomachenko, to win. Has made a lot of news on boxing Twitter. I think nothing of Lomachenko, not Lomachenko, but Teofimo, because to me, his response made no sense to me. Just like his initial comments just were nonsensical to me. It was just a non-serious comment, and I take his IG post afterwards a non-serious comment. And in terms of Malinaji, and y'all can touch on this, and look, there's a reason that Stephen Espinosa and Showtime gave him the boot. He keeps inserting his foot in his mouth in this way, and to me, I also take him as non-serious, and he comes off in many ways as the Kid Rock of boxing. And for those who know about Kid Rock and how he has turned over the years, you know what I mean. I'll leave the rest of the commentary up to y'all.
Yeah, go ahead, Bo.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. Let me just say this right here. Um, my grandfather, in his ultimate wisdom, said something to me a long time ago. He said, "If you have a conversation with three fools, then you're gonna wind up being the fourth one." Um, when people say,
Oh,
when people say, uh, "Don't bring race into boxing," well, these are comments right here where we have to, because he brought it into boxing. Basically, but Paulie said, I'm not even going to go as far as I can go. I'm just going to say this. Paulie's statement is a slap in the face to anyone who actually loves the sport and looks at a fight and judges it based off what they see. He's basically saying that if you are, or if you're the person that's saying that Haney won because you want to see the white guy lose, basically that's saying that you know you have an agenda. That everybody think Haney won, has an agenda, and you pretty much don't know boxing. That's pretty much what he's saying on the 3D level. He's trying to slickly say y'all don't know anything about boxing. Otherwise,
and he
you
knows
know,
more than anyone else, which
right,
is
I know,
ridiculous.
right, no more than anyone else, and you guys don't know anything about boxing. Otherwise, you would side with me. At the end of the day, um, in close fights, these are the type of things you get. He knows that. Also, let's bring in this factor also as well. Um, when he said that, oh, they want to see the white guy lose. Well, we saw that already. Lomachenko had two losses. So like that statement makes no sense to me, because if it's about wanting to see him lose, well, we got to see that twice actually, Paul. So that kind of don't make any sense there. Paul sometimes like to say things for shock value, and he brings things in, and he tries to make it look like, well, this is what everyone is thinking anyway. And if I ever see him, I'm ask, hey man, what kind of people do you hang out with? Because people I hang out with, they don't think like that. He said,
He's from
well, let's just,
Bensonhurst, bruh.
well,
He's
yeah, but
always had this in
yeah,
him. So
yeah, but think about what he said though. He said, let's just say it. Let's just go on and say what everybody don't want to say. Well, that never crossed my mind at all. Period. Right? I think we touched upon it. Listen, in a fight where you have a rival fight, or you have a fighter who's that everybody's rooting for, like Daniel just said, which was a very good point. Lomachenko became the sympathetic figure in that fight. So when you become that sympathetic figure in that fight and you actually lose, you're gonna have the hearts of everybody on your side. It's the old, it's just like the old Cinderella story. Everybody wants to see that team that nobody expects to get there and everything against them. They want to see that team do it and win. That's just what fighting is about. That's just what the drama's about. So, like I said, I'm not gonna lay into it, because it's really beneath me to even try to talk about something like that, because that's not what the sport that I love is about. The sport that I love is about has promoted boxing for every gender, every race, every culture. So that's not the sport of boxing that I know. because I've seen robberies like we talk. I've seen Hoy Thief Strum. I don't. Nobody wanted to see that guy lose. He's just like saying, well, people want to see. Nah, there's politics. Is there politics in the sport? Yes. Is a sport boxing? Yes. Which is I think was more Teofimo Lopez was trying to point out because he's upset because he feels that Top Rank kind of did him dirty to bring in Devin Haney and do what they did for him. So there's politics in the sport. Yes, politics is the reason why we had Rolly Romero fighting that guy he fought Barboza when it should have been O'Hara Davies in that position, or they should have had Rolly Romero fight O'Hara Davies. That would have been a more competitive fight, right? So is there politics in the sport? Well, yes, of course there's politics in the sport. We can come up with 1,000 instances where it is. But to sit there and say it's because everybody wants to see one person lose, that's never been about that. Like somebody's gonna lose, but boxing has never been about that. The boxing that I love has promoted everybody of every race, every gender, and every culture. Hell, this podcast does that. This podcast does that. You have you have three different cultures on here, and you all of us will have our opinion, and we are. And if you guys have been following this channel, we don't yell, we don't scream, we don't do the back and forth ignorant stuff that you see. If we disagree, we disagree, but we make our valid points. At the end of the day, there's respect. That's the boxing that
That's
I love.
I wasn't gonna say much, but this is some Fox News Tucker Carlson BS from Malinaji. I
Yeah,
just keep it a buck.
Yes.
yeah. Now
And
I was gonna. I was.
the irony is that this dude who used a certain black cultural aesthetic from the beginning of his career to
Mm-hmm.
how he fought, to how he talked, to how he dressed. I mean, damn it, this is the same dude who put his hair in cornrows prior to a title defense, right?
Oh Lord, we got Mike going.
Now, all these years later, gonna turn around and make some MAGA-ish nonsensical comments like this. I can't with this dude. Go on, Gail, before I really get mad.
Right. But what's funny was I was actually gonna do something. I was gonna replace
He's a
Chavez
culture
Jr.
vulture. That's what he
I was
is.
I was gonna
What?
I
I
was
said
gonna
he's a
replace
culture vulture.
No, I'm hearing a name there. What name was that again?
I was gonna replace Chavez Jr. But yeah.
Don't you mess with him. Don't you mess with him. Listen, Malinaji, he was fired for a reason. And him running his mouth is his effort to stay relevant and get some attention
Very good point.
for his employers who made a very unfortunate, in my opinion, decision to bring him on. Admittedly, he was a very good commentator. His liabilities
Correct. Excuse me,
do
Gail.
not
He
make
didn't
up
have
for that.
cornrows, Malinaji. He basically put cornrow weaves to the point that it was
Oh,
falling out of his head in a title defense.
now that, respectfully, that hellacious decision and display, just so out of line, doesn't, to me, I will put his commentary abilities off to the side. They were good. They mean nothing against all his liabilities, all the offensive remarks, all the out of date attitudes. He is a MAGA guy through and through, and in my opinion, it has no place in boxing. Boxing is a sport where we are asked as fans, speaking as fans, to choose sides, right? You want one guy or one woman to win over their opponent. You place your bets. You cheer somebody on for whatever reasons. We also do that with teams. And in any sporting event, it's just more fun when you back one side or one competitor over another. When you're backing a team sport, it's frequently some kind of alliance that has to do with where you live, where you went to school. There are some ties there. With boxing, it is very much about the individual, and it becomes very much about the ties you connect with, which frequently fall in what I would call, with a little t, a tribal relationship. You know, who do you relate to personally, according to who you are? And it's not necessarily a color tribe. It can be where you're from. The Southern Californians tend to root for the Southern Californians. The New Yorkers tend to root for the New Yorkers. Or you root for somebody who looks like you. You know, you really can't tell who's underneath that football helmet, but you sure as hell know who's standing there in the ring. So these things come into play, but they do not need to take on, you know, these unfortunate cultural wars we are in. That has no place in boxing, those sort of arguments. So to see what was really a good fight, even with arguments over the scorecards, denigrate into this wider, unfortunate, commentary war that's going on right now, that's being layered on top of the cultural war our country is involved in, which we've got to figure out how to extricate ourselves from somehow. Bo, I think we need your grandfather to be, if he's still on this earth, he needs to be put in charge. If not, we need to bring him back. And maybe it's going to have to fall to you. That's all I'm saying. You know, nobody should give Malinaji any daylight, any breathing room for his comments. Lopez, the same. And we do also have to remind ourselves right here, right now, we all traffic on boxing Twitter. We're all there. We reach the audiences, the people, we connect with the people of our boxing community of all stripes. But you know what? Boxing Twitter is not reality. Boxing Twitter and Twitter in general represents a very small slice of the public.
Yeah.
Even a very small slice of boxing. Most fans are not on boxing Twitter. And it is, it's an echo chamber and it's a cesspool. And we just have to recognize that does not reflect the greater reality out there. We need to move outside what's going on boxing Twitter once in a while.
If you're there, Daniel, you want to chime in?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, because I'll say it first, like you mentioned it. Paulie is from Bensonhurst. That's all you need to know. If you know that part of Brooklyn, you kind of know the stench that he comes from in many ways. Political. He's always been that way, but he knew how to sell himself around that time. Here's where it gets a little bit interesting, and this is where I start digging a little bit into a situation, because there was a sentiment, we have to remember, probably a decade back, a real strong sentiment because of HBO's decision to focus on marketing Sergey Kovalev, Gennady Golovkin, and over the years then Lomachenko. You started seeing a trend. Sorry, the network was pushing either Eastern European or Central Asian fighters that look more Caucasian. As a marketing decision, and some parts of Twitter, we know some parts of boxing Twitter had a very negative and visceral reaction to it. Now what you're starting to see is the latent side effects of that marketing decision. Because now you have a situation where one idiot says, oh, if you wanted Haney to win, you're anti-white. I'm pretty sure in the same breath, Paulie, if he really leans into his Mongolian, probably wants Lomachenko dead because he's Ukrainian. I'll go there. So that's one. And two, it's a factor in the matter that we also in this country do lean towards the burgeoning ethnic groups that come in as immigration. And if it was second generation Germans, Italians, Asians in the area, in the Far East, or in Southeastern Asia, the ones that have been coming in most recently have been Eastern Europeans and Slavic areas of the world, or Central Asian areas in the world. That's been those who are coming in. So we are highlighting those stories. But the issue that's coming up, and this is unfortunately the issue that has permeated boxing, is that the same way that the Germans, the Italians learned to not let their ethnicity cover the fact of the predators that they sometimes can get just by their skin color, it started to take effect into what's happening to Eastern European fighters, although there's a lot more resistance to it. It's an ugly debate right now, because right now, is it a coincidence, or is it just luck that the best light heavyweight fighters in the world are Russians and Berturbiev and Bivol? No, they're just the best fighters into it. We have to look at it deeper. There's a reason why you're seeing this drastic jump also as well in Eastern European, Central Asian fighters coming in and doing well in the sport, because they've been held back by the Cold War for decades. And if that didn't happen, we probably would have a lot different history than what we have now when it comes to boxing. But but right now it is what it is. Should we dismiss? Well, we'll dismiss Paulie's comments off the bat because they're stupid. Teofimo's comments, you can see more into that aspect. I understand, because I'm the bull. I understood exactly what he was trying to say with that IG post, but the fact that he went on that dumbass tirade before then negates his point. It's just an ugly debate that has into it, and Gail's right. It's unfortunately becomes very tribal, and at the end of the day, we take away from, like I said, we're taking away from a really, really good fight. A fight that I would like to see a rematch, even though I know for a fact we're not going to go, because Haney's going to go straight fight to Eddie and go to 140. Not just for money, but for his own health. I think it's just mainly, in this case, it just feels kind of bad because of what Lomachenko represents in this case as a Ukrainian. And probably also because how you saw his emotions coming in. You saw in the post-fight, there videos of him crying in the locker room afterwards. Because this is probably his last chance, legitimate chance, to be undisputed in a weight class. He never achieved that. And this was probably his last best chance. It's just a mess all around.
Yeah, I think to Bo's earlier point, stuff that Teofimo said, the ridiculousness of Malinagi's comments and others has taken away from what was an outstanding bout. And whoever you thought won or lost, you should celebrate the fight itself and the skill level that was exhibited by both men. Where Haney goes from here, that's to be determined. Where Lomachenko goes from here, that's also to be determined. But the bottom line is, there was an expectation that this fight be a very, very good fight, and both men delivered. From my understanding, it did pretty good numbers when it came to pay-per-view. Sold out crowd, right? It drew the attention of the mainstream sports faction. And let's just leave it at that. the ugliness in terms of some of the comments afterwards, it's unwarranted, it's silly, it's unnecessary. But because it got so much traction, unfortunately, particularly with Teofimo and Malinaji, it had to be addressed here, and I just had to get some ish off my chest because on a personal level, Malinaji, I am getting sick and tired of this dude. Whether it's him, whether it's these recent comments, whether it's his comments on Mario Lopez and Steve Kim's podcast in the aftermath of George Floyd. No. Again, and I'll repeat, there was a reason why Espinosa gave him the boot. And let's just say I talked about him being a culture vulture. Well, Malinaji is showing his true colors, and we just saw that again this weekend. And I don't want to talk about it no more. Let's move on.
Well, let me point out a couple
ahead,
of things. Number one, we should, as a group, who believe that we have the responsibility not to engage in this, should, wherever possible, deny the oxygen these guys want with these comments. It's incumbent upon us.
You're right. Ultimately, you're right. And Bo was right too with his initial comments. How
absolutely right.
We shouldn't, shouldn't argue with beneath us.
Yeah, it is. It's our responsibility to remind people. Listen, just because they said it doesn't mean you have to respond to it, retweet it, give it any oxygen. None of that. So interesting to me that Daniel brings up Beterbiev and Bivol in particular, in the light heavyweight division. And they're just generically called Russians. They speak the Russian language. Beterbiev is an ethnic Chechen who is a Muslim who is now a Canadian citizen. So to call him a Russian at this point is sort of silly. He speaks French with Georges St. Pierre, his best buddy. So, and lives in Montreal. So kind of nutty. Bivol is an ethnic Kyrgyzstani from Kyrgyzstan, whose mother is Korean. So he is as much Asian as he is Central or Eastern European. And basically he has his familial home in St. Petersburg, but, for all practical purposes, lives in Los Angeles. That's the international nature of the best of boxing, which we should hold up, celebrate, enjoy, and applaud the efforts of both the winners and the losers when they give it all.
Absolutely. And let's just end it on that note and move on to the
Hey, Mike, can I?
Go ahead,
I'm
Bo.
sorry. I want to add one more thing. The sport of boxing has brought more people together than it has separated people apart. I'll point to this podcast. I got to know all of you all through what? Boxing. The sport of boxing has brought more people together than it's split apart. And the reason why, and I'm, like I said, I'm not giving this any energy because I don't want that part of a sport that brought me closer to my grandfather and brought me closer to my uncles. I don't want that part of the sport that that part of the sport that helped me understand a lot of things about life. Boxing, I've always used boxing to life. Right, you prepare your body, your mind, and you get a good team behind you when you go out here in life. Prepare your body and your mind for what you got to endure in life, and you get a good support team behind you, people you can talk to, people you go to for help, and you go out there and you go through life, and that's how boxing is. You got to prepare your body and mind, get a good team behind you. It's brought more people together. It is engulfed and ingratiated more cultures of different type of people. There are great stories about the sport. I don't want that to die by talking about a few idiot comments that some people make because they're having personal issues. That's never been boxing.
Mic drop. And what you just heard is Bo's very eloquent and profound and astute TED talk when it comes to the sweet science. And we move on from there. And let's get to the news here. We all heard was developing situation, rumors, if you want to call it, over the past couple of hours right before we hit the live button this evening. And ESPN is reporting that Errol Spence, Bud Crawford have agreed to fight each other in July 29th, I believe. Look, we've been down this road before numerous times over the past 12 to 18 months. Negotiations has been happening, and there's been talks of an agreement taking place. We all remember it in the fall of last year, where there was agreement in principle. We hearing it again. And upon this latest reporting from ESPN, my reaction is wake me up when we see the introductory press conference for this fight.
Yeah, you know what? I treat the news about Terence Crawford and Errol Spence just like I treat the news when the doctor told me that I was gonna have a son. I'm gonna hold my breath on that one. I don't. I'm gonna hold my breath on that one because I'm over here praying that she ain't pregnant. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you, doc? I'm praying she ain't pregnant. Get that out of here. That ain't good news to me. But no, like you said, man. We're gonna hold our reservations and until we know for sure what's gonna happen because we've been hearing it all along. The only thing that makes it somewhat inspiring is the fact that we're given an actual a lot of details about it, right? We're being told a lot of details about it. So that's what makes it kind of inspiring. But at the end of the day, yeah, I'm with you. Let me know when contracts are signed or these guys are retweeting because we thought we had this last time and then we got David Avanesian. So hopefully that's what it is and we finally get it. Because the whole making us wait and like big fight. It's funny. Emmanuel Stewart told a story one time. He said when he made Sugar Ray Leonard and Tommy Hearns, he met Tommy Hearns at the airport, got him to sign a contract. Then he went to the gym and met Sugar Ray Leonard to got him to sign a contract, and he had a fight. So I wish we can go back to those days that we can get stuff like that. But all I can say is thank God for women's boxing because they've been carrying that mantle, and hopefully, like we said, this fight happens and we get it on.
Any reactions to this, Daniel and Gail at all, or are you just like, yeah?
Well, even a blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while, and that may be what we've got here. Yes, ESPN has provided a certain reporter a platform. They've chosen to let him report this. I hesitate to say that ESPN is reporting. The individual is reporting. The same reporter, by the way, who's announced this fight and the dates locked in, I believe 4 to 5 times prior to this and been wrong every single time. Now, maybe he's right this time. And I have a source that will become known. I will eventually name the source. The source will eventually become obvious, not now, but in the days ahead, let's say next week sometime, who is in a position to know, who told me yesterday, they're talking, they're still real far apart. This news comes out today, we have a chat, and I say, you hearing this? And I get the LOL. Yeah, well, apparently so kind of thing, laughing about it. Tonight, Keith Idek of Boxing Scene, a reporter whose credentials are unassailable, published a report just before we started the podcast, which says the deal is seemingly closer than ever to becoming a done deal, who reports that he has confirmed neither Crawford or Spence have signed contracts as of Tuesday night. Now, it's very possible they will still sign. It's possible they have agreed to terms. But if there are any delays getting the ink down and dried on the piece of paper, in real life or electronically or otherwise, you could end up with a fight that ends up being pushed back a little bit, a change of date. Let's also note that the date that's being reported, which is July 29th, is also the date, at least at this point, of a fairly significant UFC pay-per-view. Do we really think that Spence and Crawford want to compete for dollars with a UFC pay-per-view at this point? I think not. I think not. It doesn't matter if those two fights take place in different cities and different venues. They compete for, in large part, an overlapping pool of money, and people only have so much of it to go around, ladies and gentlemen. So I think there are portions of this that will come to be true, but for now, we're still reporting a rumor as a fact. And I'm seeing a lot of very polarized reactions. There are people on Twitter going haywire. They've made their travel plans. They are having, Spaces chats. They're whooping it up. Oh my God, we have this fight. Well, maybe you do, but right now you don't. And I hope to God those travel plans were non-refundable. There is a subset of people, it's at this point a smaller share of people, but it's a shame to see their reaction being, yeah, we've heard it a million times. It's been wrong every single time. I'm worn out. Tell me when they're making their ring walk. They're over it. We lost them because of this behavior. We have not held that reporter accountable at all. And it is not all that different than Bo talking about the irresponsibility of the on-air announcers leading fans watching a fight like Haney versus Lomachenko to believe something is happening that is not. Repeated attribution to unnamed sources is either lazy or deceptive. You can all decide which one it is. So we'll see if this actually comes to pass. We'll see if the date actually happens. It is possible it will end up being announced. That means this reporter got it right once in, let's say, 6 attempts to report it. If I'm right once out of 6 times at work, I get fired.
Right. And if we're wrong that many times over at Three Kings Boxing, Bo, I think Bo had to leave, but thank Bo for being on here on the show this evening. For those who want to check out Bo, you check him out on Twitter, Truth and Fact Sports Talk on Twitter, and again his work on Three Kings Boxing. Again, your source for pure unadulterated boxing information. I go to you, Daniel. The thing I was going to say, we were wrong that many times on Three Kings Boxing. Best be sure we will feel the wrath from the head of Three Kings Boxing, 2K, and we'll get reprimanded appropriately in effect. I'll go to you, Daniel.
Or they get busted down. Or they get busted down to covering club fights until they get their shit straight, which is exactly as it should be. And listeners, followers, choose who you get your boxing information from carefully. Carefully. You can trust somebody like Keith Idek. You can go to somewhere like Three Kings Boxing, or should I say, also say NY Fights. Those of us, you can laugh all you want or poo-poo the membership in the Boxing Writers Association of America, but most of those folks do not report rumors as facts. They're willing to put their sources on the record. They're willing to make the phone calls and check and be transparent. Transparency is your friend. Look for that.
Absolutely. I'll go to you, Daniel. Your thoughts.
I'm in that other subsection that Gail mentioned. We have heard this before. This is the boy who cried wolf at this point. And unfortunately, we have to remember who the person reported. It's Mike Coppinger. Mike Coppinger. Mind you, the same Mike Coppinger who actually got ethered, but then he undid a little bit of it, who got ethered by Tony Khan because he decided to open his mouth about the seat capacity for the Wembley show that AEW is going to have all in. We're at a point where we're going to take Mike Carpenter seriously. Remember, he has been wrong multiple times on this. Gail has mentioned it. Hell, Ring Magazine has been wrong about this multiple times. It's a situation where at this point the bell has to ring and round one has to start for me to believe this. Now, there could be a situation where they are getting extremely close because the other prospects, when it comes to fighting, are nowhere near as financially lucrative than what this fight would be. In Spence's case, it's Keith Thurman. In Bud's case is Alexis Rocha. Neither of them are going to be as profitable as who's going to be fighting each other. And let's not forget, not to mention, even though I mentioned Rocha, we know who's really hunting Bud, Virgil, and we know who's really hunting Spence, Boots. So the longer they can hold off Virgil and Boots, it would behoove them to do this. But like we're at a point where it's been said over and over again, this date the third time that this date has been used to confirm the news. Hopefully they're right in this case because I'm tired of seeing it being wrong. But if it's wrong, we just gotta sigh and say, here we go again on it.
Yeah, that's been the development, the latest regarding the long negotiations for that fight. We'll keep you updated in terms of the status of a potential bout between Errol Spence and Crawford for undisputed status at 147 pounds. Again, that's the latest. We'll keep you abreast here on Pound for Pound Box Report. Let's move on and preview some of these fights because the show is running a little bit lengthy. And just like in the recaps, I, for the most part, split these fights up. I'm going to do the same thing here. A lot of action taking place over in Europe, England, Great Britain area, right? Let's start over in Northern Ireland. Daniel, right? Last time many fans remember watching Michael Conlan in the ring. It was in one of the most dramatic fights of 2022. Unfortunately for him, after getting off to a very, very good start against Leigh Wood, putting him down, had him on the verge of being stopped. Wood crept his way back into the fight slowly but surely. Conlan was ahead going into the last round, but Conlan got caught with the right hand, subsequently knocked out of the ring, literally. This took place in March 2022 against Wood, who was then WBA champion at 126 pounds. Conlan has since fought twice and won. On the 27th, he gets back in. He gets another title shot. He's going to fight IBF featherweight champion Luis Alberto Lopez. In Lopez's last bout, he beat Warrington to win the belt. I can't call this one because Conlan is the better mover, right? More fleet of foot, probably has a little bit faster hands, more of the classic boxer. But as we saw in the fight with Wood, one, he tends to fatigue late in rounds, and two, you have to question his chin after that fight against Wood. You just don't know how well he can hold a punch after getting stretched in such a dramatic, devastating fashion. He's facing a Lopez who's determined, who's not afraid to fight on the road. In his title win against Warrington, he beat Warrington in Warrington's hometown, Leeds, England. I don't know who's going to win. I can't call this. On the surface, it seems like Conlan would have the skill to outbox a Lopez, but then again, Lopez is rugged, he's determined, he's physically strong, and he has power in both hands. How do you call this fight, Daniel?
This could be a coin flip. This could be a coin flip of a fight because this is an interesting case because you mentioned Leigh Wood. I know we're going to talk about him later on, but it's a fight that Mike Conlan had to rebuild himself into getting after getting pretty. Yeah, the modern I said it would be Bernard Hopkins to win by Leigh Wood in that fight. He's rebuilt it, and now he's into a fight against Garcia, who fought very well against Warrington and may have retired Warrington, depending on what his decision making is going to be. But now you have a situation where Conlan, yes, he has the better pedigree. He has the better amateur background. He technically has the better feet and better movement. But that intangible that you mentioned is there. Is that chin sturdy enough now after that dramatic loss? We're not going to know. And this also, you could try to see home field advantage in a way. It is Northern Ireland that you're going to see this fight in. But Garcia's already proved he'll beat you in your home area. So that's kind of lost in that manner. And I credit Gail when she says this. Champions it's true. Champions get a little bit more confidence when they have the belt and when they go and defend it. They have that more air confidence because they're coming in as the champion. And I think Garcia is going to ride that wave when he comes into a champion. This is probably going to be a fight where I would not be surprised if we see a similar situation to what we saw with Haney and Loma, where in the first half you see one fighter take control, and then in the second half you see the other fighter sort of take control with close scorecards. The only bad taste in mouth is, unfortunately, it is the UK in the area, and we know how UK sometimes tend to cook. So Garcia has beaten the home cooking before, but we'll see if he can beat it in this case against Conlan.
And that fight is going to take place again on the 27th in Conlan's home turf, on Conlan's home turf over in Belfast, Northern Ireland. Let's move from Northern Ireland to England, Bournemouth, England, specifically. Gail, look, I've had my criticisms of Lawrence Okolie, but I give him credit. He had a title defense just a little bit over a month ago. He returned to the ring quickly, fighting countryman Chris Billam-Smith. I think this is going to be a better fight than people think. Billam-Smith, he's rugged. He can punch, right? But the thing about Okolie is he can move. He has a decent jab. As much as I don't like his fighting style, it's effective. I think Smith is going to be able to get home with some shots, but I just think the fact that the champion Okolie can move, he can make it a boring fight if he has to. I just think he has too much diversity, too much versatility, and too much hand speed for Smith. As well as Billam-Smith can punch, he can out. The thing about him is the defense is not that great, and because of that, I think that the champion Okolie will land more punches. They'll probably go to decision, but I have Okolie winning here. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I know you have expressed your opinion of Lawrence Okolie, and I'd say in not too many distant years. I mean, I think you would rather watch paint dry and watch Lawrence Okolie fight, but he has upped his game considerably. Props to him. He's shown improvements. He's put on some damn good fights. This is definitely a domestic rivalry, bragging rights. I think both men will be very motivated to bring it. And I agree with you. I think Okolie is just the bigger talent. Billam-Smith is a serviceable fighter. He'll give a good fight. He is not ever going to be an elite fighter. He's done a lot with the skills he's got, though. I will give him credit for that. It is possible that it's going to come down to a who wants it more kind of contest, but I do think that if you're going to bet anything more than money that you can afford to put a match to, you need to put it on Okolie.
Yeah, indeed. I mentioned the Conlan fight with Lopez. That's going to be on ESPN Plus on Saturday. This fight with Okolie and Billam-Smith, that's going to be that's a Sky Sports promoted event. Also in England on the Zone in Manchester. Last week we talked about Terri Harper, who was set to fight Cecilia Braekhus as well. The morning of that bout, Braekhus announced that she had to bow out, suffering from flu-like symptoms. Kudos to Eddie Hearn, who did some magic. Harper instead is going to fight this weekend. Going to fight Ivana Habazin, excuse me. Harper defending her WBA belt at 154 pounds. I go to you, Daniel. Do you think there will be any concern for Harper for such a drastic turnaround, preparing for one woman the style of Braekhus and having to basically adjust literally on the fly for a different opponent?
There's always that risk. There's always that risk when it comes to different fighters into it. Actually, one good example is Eric Morales, who was supposed to fight Lucas Batiste. Batiste got sick, and he wound up fighting Pablo Cesar Cano. And that is a dramatic adjustment going from Lucas Batiste to Pablo Cesar Cano. It's a situation where Terri Harper is facing a similar situation now, where you're preparing for a Cecilia Braekhus where she's, unfortunately, she is older, and and it's still, her pure prime is already unfortunately behind her, but she's still a very, very skilled fighter, and she does have a little bit of a chip on her shoulder because of how she lost to McCaskill. Going from that to preparing for a last-minute opponent, those are always dangerous. Those are always dangerous, and especially when you're Terri Harper, you've made the dramatic jumping from 130 to 154 and looking more comfortable in it. You never know what happens into it, because I think her opponent has been more settled in this weight now, if I remember correctly from what I've seen when I heard the replacement. But it could be a good showcase for Harper, show a little bit how comfortable she really is at 154. Because if she's really comfortable and if she really wins, she actually can buy herself a ticket, even though probably it will probably still be at a loss. She'll buy herself a ticket to the Claressa Shields. And that's a very interesting fight that could happen depending on how this fight shapes up. But it's always dangerous when you have a last-minute opponent. Ask all the British fighters who's recent in the last 2 years who lost to quote-unquote mystery Mexican opponents, especially last minute. It's an always dangerous game when you're preparing into it, but this might actually turn into a little bit better for Harper. And probably in hindsight, it might actually have been the best thing that could happen to Braekhus.
And at the very least, in terms of Harper, the move up to basically 130, 135, up to 154 pounds has served her well from a physical standpoint. If you observe the weigh-in for Harper's canceled bout against Braekhus, Harper looked in tremendous shape, right? her body has adjusted, filled out terrifically. She looks like a full-fledged 154 pounder who looks like she could even fight at 160 pounds, right? So to your point, she could be in the sweepstakes for a potential fight with Clarissa Shields should she win this upcoming fight. I absolutely agree. That fight between Harper and Habazin is going to be on the undercard in Manchester, on the undercard of the rematch, Gail, between Mauricio Lara and Leigh Wood. These two fought back in February of this year. Wood lost the WBA featherweight title to Lara. Wood was doing well in the first 5, 6, 7 rounds, doing a good job of boxing, but with Mauricio Lara, let's face it, tremendous power. All he needs is one shot, and he found that opportunity to land one shot in round 8, put Wood down with the left hook. Um, Wood's corner decided that their charge was a little bit too hurt for their liking, stepped in and stopped the fight. Wood had said basically that was that fight was just a result of him getting caught, uh, lack of discipline on his part. He insists that he's going to take care of business in this upcoming rematch. But again, Gail, uh, at 126, I don't know if there's a bigger puncher than Mauricio Lara. Yeah, he can be wild and he can be hit, but he can crack. And you could see a similar situation play out again in this fight where Wood is getting the better of it for the most part. And then Lara can change things around with one punch.
You would think Eddie Hearn had learned his lesson a long ass time ago about bringing in what I call those mystery Mexican opponents over to the UK. I mean, they did it again last weekend with Gary Cully in Belfast getting whacked by Jose Lopez. You know, yet again, another mystery Mexican prevails. Whoops. So here we are getting the rematch, immediate rematch after their fight in February between Leigh Wood and Mauricio Lara, Bronco Lara. He's called Bronco for a reason, ladies and gentlemen. I got to see him ringside last March when he was in San Diego. And holy caramba, that man knows how to throw and land a punch. And you're right. If there is anybody at 126 who could be compared in his way to the punching power of a Deontay Wilder, who weighs 100 pounds more than him, it's a fitting comparison because he can be battered around for 6, 7, 8 rounds down on the scorecards, and then bang, the fight's over. I do think Leigh Wood will perform better in this fight than he did before. But, you know, I don't think he'll win the fight. I think that he might last a little longer. He did go into the 7th round before his corner threw in the towel, getting battered. And Wood had also, unfortunately, suffered a cut over his left eye due to an accidental headbutt. So he had to deal with that virtually the whole fight, in addition to this 25-year-old buzzsaw called Mauricio Lara coming at him. So, after Lara had taken out Josh Warrington, right? That was the first time he was being served up on a platter to a then undefeated fighter back in 2021, still sort of in the pandemic time. He took out Warrington with ease. He had him down several times before it was finally ended in the 9th round. In the rematch, there was a real unfortunate technical decision there after 2 rounds due to some wicked cuts due to a head clash there. He has since had the fight in San Diego, back in Mexico City. He goes back to the UK, wipes out Wood. I think it'll be a very exciting fight to watch. Champions do fight with a little extra pep in their step. He does hold the WBA World Featherweight title. I know Leigh Wood really wants a good showing. He wants it back. You know, he needs a good performance. Even in a loss, he needs a good performance. He'll be very, very motivated. I'm just not sure much can happen to turn the tide around. Laura's going to come at him. And Lara is one of those classic guys that's willing to take a punch to land a punch. Wood just simply does not have the sort of power. He does have power, but he's just not, the sledgehammer sort that Lara has. He is also nearly 10 years older than Lara, and it does make a difference. He's not old per se. See the quote marks in the air at 34, but he is 10 years older, and it does start to get on you. Should be fun while it lasts. It's a fight that we'll all be able to see on DAZN, and you're going to see sad face Eddie Hearn over there sitting ringside once again.
When you talk about fighters who throw with mean intentions, Mauricio Lara fits that bill, right? He puts everything into his shots. Doesn't worry about getting hit back. As long as he's able to land his punches, that's okay, because in his mind, he can knock out anyone he puts his hand on. He's able to land on, right? And if Wood was a little bit faster, if he had better footwork, and if he had a sturdier chin, right? Because in talking about Conlan, I mentioned how Conlan was able to put Wood down and almost had him out in the early rounds. I would give Leigh Wood more of a shot, but because of his lack of movement, and because, if we're going to be honest here, Leigh Wood is a bit of a slow starter, right? And he was able to escape those early rounds against Lara without getting tagged. I think that Lara will be more aggressive in this rematch, and I think he will be able to land more consistently in the early rounds, and I'm going with Lara. I think he's going to stop him sooner in the rematch than he did in the first fight. And I think we're going to end the show on that note. I want to thank Bo. Basically, the battery died on his phone. Again, if you want to check out Bo on these boxing social media streets, you can do so. Truth and Facts Sports Talk over on Twitter. You can also check out his Truth and Facts page on YouTube, where he not only talks boxing, but just talks sports in general: basketball, football, NFL, NBA specifically. I'll go to the rest of the panel here. Begin the show with ladies first. I'm going to end the show with ladies first. Gil from nyfights.com, for those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk media, for those who want to check you out every now and then on TMZ Live. Let the folks know where they can find you.
You can find my work at nyfights.com right there. It's not hard to figure out, nyfights.com. There are no major American cards this weekend, but there's still a lot of boxing action. There are some local fights. If you do happen to have a club fight in your area, whether it's this weekend or anytime during the summer, I encourage you, buy a ticket, take some friends, enjoy some local talent, support boxing. That is where all the guys and women we're talking about once were. That's where they once came from, or somewhere like that. And nothing beats seeing fights ringside, and club fights are fun. So go buy yourself a beverage and enjoy it, and have a great weekend, everybody.
And I'll go to you, Daniel, from For Boxing News and the Inscriber, for those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk pro wrestling, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially when it comes to the Miami Heat, who unfortunately couldn't close the deal in Game 4, losing to the Celtics this evening. But anyway, for those who want to talk boxing, pro wrestling, NBA, Miami Heat, let the folks know where they can find you.
You can find, like I said, luckily Elon hasn't kicked us off yet on Twitter, Ruckers99, RAWKZ99, and it's kind of, luckily, I take the glass half full when it comes to the Heat in this case, because The Heat and the Florida Panthers have been playing the game of chicken to see who's actually going to lose first in their conference finals because the Heat still have a 3-1 commanding lead over the Celtics, and the Florida Panthers look to have broken the Carolina Hurricanes. So, and
Yeah, they've been the surprise of this of the NHL playoffs, no doubt about it.
yeah, and like I said, they have a chance to complete the sweep tomorrow night, interesting enough. But we'll definitely see what's going on, and everybody hopefully enjoys the Memorial Day weekend coming up because it is coming up. We get a 3-day weekend. Hopefully, everybody enjoys it.
Um, Comment here. I didn't see Shoe Shine Boxing, but I want to give a shout out to Shoe Shine Boxing, who says hello, Gail and everyone else. I appreciate you for checking this
Thank
out.
you, Shine. They've got their own podcast on Mondays, not in competition with us, so give it a listen.
Indeed. If you have not done so already, sir, please make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you're checking us out on YouTube, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button once again. Help us with the overall algorithms during each particular episode, and even after our episodes are concluded. And also hit that subscribe button, get us closer to being monetized. For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness with me, you know what it is. On Twitter, Brother JR76. For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, and fragrance, you can check me out on IG and TikTok, Brother JR SC. As I said at the beginning of the show, if you want to check out all things Pound for Pound Boxing Report, please go to the site, p4pboxingreport.com. If you wish to email us with questions, comments, suggestions, you can do so, p4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com. On the site, you will find links to where to catch us out on the podcast realm. You can find Pound for Pound Boxing Report anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast. Again, if you want to check out, as well as the links where to find us all over social media, YouTube page, YouTube channel, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr page. Again, on Twitter, as I said at the beginning of the show, for weeks, Pound for Pound Box Report, the original Twitter page was unfortunately hacked and suspended. Got a new page up. The new address, the new handle for Pound Box Report on Twitter is P4P Boxing RPT. Again, P4 the number 4 PBOXINGRPT. Please spread the word. On the next episode, Pound for Pound Boxing Report, we will do a recap of the rematch between Mauricio, Lara, and Leigh Wood. Recap of the fight between Terri, Harper, and Ivana Habazin. Also on this card, the return of Jack Catterall, who has been inactive since his controversial loss to Josh Taylor last year. He's moved on from Probellum to Matchroom, makes his Matchroom debut on the undercard of the rematch between Wood and Lara. Jack Catterall fighting a guy by the name of Darryl Foley. So we will probably recap those fights. Also recap Okolie, his cruiserweight title defense against Billam-Smith. Also do a recap of Alberto Lopez and his upcoming title defense against Michael Conlan. And we will do a preview of the return of Clarissa Shields, who fights on June the 3rd in Detroit, Michigan, live on DAZN against Hannah Gabriels. This is a rematch or fight from, I want to say, 2018. Gabriels is the only woman to have put who has knocked Shields down. Shields won their first fight, but what makes the distinction in that fight is Gabriels put Clarissa Shields on the deck in the first round of that bout. Shields got up and pretty much had her way the rest of those rounds. But yeah, Shields, Gabriels, they fight a rematch in Detroit on DAZN. Again, I want to thank everybody who joined us this evening. Shout out to everybody who joined us in the live YouTube chat. Again, shout out to Shoe Shine Boxing. For Bo, who was on with us earlier in the show. Bo from Truth and Fact Sports Talk, senior writer and head of media relations for Three King Boxing. For Bo, for Gil of NYFights.com, for Daniel of For Boxing News and the Inscriber. This has been episode 405 of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. I'm your host, Michael. We will see you guys next time. Y'all have a good one. Good evening. No, it was a long show. Thank you for joining us, hanging on with us. Episode 405 of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. Everyone have a good one. Good evening. Good night.